Yeah, so to kind of highlight the Arizona Cardinals, right? I mean, what's not to love about their free agency and their offseason? I mean, obviously they got DeAndre Hopkins for a trade that many people had doubts in their mind about Bill O'Brien afterwards. And you know what? I mean, as much as I think receivers aren't as important as people may seem, I mean, getting a top 3 receiver has to be an upgrade. And I think DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, I think that's a solid receiver group. And I think although Fitzgerald is very old, he's still reliable. And I think he finally gets back in his slot position where he actually did really well in 2017, amassing 1,000 yards at that age. So I think he can still be productive there. And I think Christian Kirk has the potential to hit over 800 yards as an outside threat. So obviously that's something that we all love. Obviously they picked up Josh Jones in the third round of the draft, and obviously Isaiah Simmons. I think I said the word obviously a lot, but I mean, it's clear cut that the Cardinals have had a great offseason. So with that being said, I think my record, right, when I looked at the Cardinals was it had a mix of both. I think they were going to pull off some upsets. Like, for example, I have them beating Buffalo at home. That's an upset that I see. I have them beating Dallas. That's another one. Even on the road against Seattle, I think that's another one that they could pull off. They did it last year. I think they can do it again. So, but, there's also that young factor, right? They're still a young team. So, like, deciding game week 17, I actually have them losing to the Rams. And my final record is 8-8. And that's not bad for a team that, went 5-10-1 last year. Obviously coming off a really, I would say, flashy year from Kyler Murray. And I think now that he has Cliff Kingsbury for a second year, I think he's only going to get better. I think he's going to improve his win totals. But again, it's just a weird season, no OTAs and stuff. It's harder for him to get that chemistry with guys like DeAndre Hopkins. It's harder for Isaiah Simmons to get more acquainted with the playbook because he's going to have to play that quarterback role for this defense. And there's a lot of stars on that defensive line. Obviously, Chandler Jones. They added Kennard. We got to talk about Budda Baker, who made the top 100 list for a reason. So there's a lot of things to like about this Cardinals team, but the one factor that I have going against them is their youngness. And there's a lot of people who say, you know what? The Chiefs and the Ravens, right? 2 second-year quarterbacks who just lit it up and went crazy. Can Kyler Murray be that guy? Absolutely. But I just don't see that same thing in him than I do with Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. So as a result, I got him going 8-8, which is not bad at all in a loaded NFC. So guys, let me know your thoughts.
I'll go ahead now.
Yeah.
I think if we flash back to when Arizona decided to hire Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach, I mean, I think it was pretty unexpected, at least for me. Obviously, he's one of the or like the more respected offensive minds in the league. But, after that losing season at Texas Tech, I don't think it was expected that he would then become an NFL head coach and take that jump.
I mean, he signed to be offensive coordinator at USC, and they stole him away. And I was mad, but I did not expect it whatsoever.
And then, of course, he pairs with Steve Keim, and they pulled off another surprising move by taking Kyler Murray at number 1 and trading away Josh Rosen, who was picked 10th by Arizona the season before. Murray obviously proved to be a good pick. He threw for 3,722 yards with 20 touchdowns. Murray also ran for 544 yards with another 4 on the ground. Even with his performance, Arizona was just 5-10-1 on the year, but they did improve on both sides of the ball this offseason. So I think they are a team worth keeping an eye on. Obviously, biggest move was trading for DeAndre Hopkins. No question there. I mean, not only do you land a star receiver in that move, but you also unload that oversized contract from David Johnson. So that's a win-win right there. I think the only question marks are really the defense and the offensive line. And you might question me on the defense, but Arizona, they had a chance to draft one of the big tackles in this class, which would have helped, but instead elected to take Isaiah Simmons. No problem with that pick. I think they were definitely still fortunate to still land Josh Jones in the 3rd round. He will be a potential starter down the road. Overall, there were just a lot of improvements for the Cardinals. I think they look now like a team that can compete with just about anyone. So I have them going 9-7. I know Anish had them at 8-8. I'll go 1 win higher. I think this team definitely lives up to the hype. In a crowded NFC West, do they make the playoffs? I say yes. I think I have them as a 7 seed. It's obviously going to be tough. I mean, it's the best division in football, but hey, I believe in this Cardinals team, and I think they can do some magical things this year.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals were easily the most intriguing team this offseason and kind of going into this season with Kyler Murray, coming into his 2nd year, as well as Cliff Kingsbury. And all the offseason additions they had. And Trigger, you kind of touched on the Isaiah Simmons pick. I mean, it's no secret. I thought that Isaiah Simmons could be the best player in last year's draft, and he was definitely my favorite. But I'm not sure Arizona was in the position to draft best player available there. I mean, they already had a strength at inside linebacker. And unless they have this insane plan in place for Isaiah Simmons, I feel like as good as he is and as good as I think he will be, they might have been better off taking a tackle. And they did not completely shore up the offensive line. That is the biggest issue on that team. And not to mention, I think that they've got problems on the interior D-line. They might have problems at corner unless Patrick Peterson can completely revive himself after that kind of a letdown season last year, especially with the suspension. So while I think this team definitely got better, I mean, it for sure got better. And with Murray getting a second year under his belt as well as Kingsbury, it will get better. I just, in a loaded NFC and a loaded division, I don't see them make the playoffs. And you went one win higher than Anish Shrikar. I'm going to go one win lower. I'm going to say 7-9. I think that just with the teams in their division and the teams they play, I think 7-9, they'll take it. I think it's realistic. I think a lot of people may be a little bit overreacting to them this offseason.
Well, quick reaction before we go to the next team. It's just, one, to touch on Kingsbury. I think he's done well with quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, he had to choose between Mayfield and Mahomes, right? I mean, he worked with Mahomes, and he literally said Mahomes would be the guy with the richest contract ever. And I mean, the guy was right. So I think Kingsbury's a quarterback guru, and I think Kyler Murray's a great project for him. I think it's only going to get better in that regard. And I think while you're right about the offensive line and the defensive line, I think Kyler Murray has enough to make it work. And especially throwing up the left tackle, because Josh Jones does play a true left tackle.
Well, okay, but I mean, a third-round tackle
he was a first-round talent, though. We both had him in the first round.
We were surprised. We
believe he was a first-round talent, but also, I mean, if that many NFL teams passing on him, maybe it's something we didn't see.
That's true, but I think it's not going to be a huge upgrade, but it's definitely better than what he had last year. And I think what he was able to do with that team last year, I think he's only going to be able to do better things. That being said, I mean, some people even have this dude winning MVP. I'm not going to go that far, but I mean, I'm definitely going to say he has a really good year. I think he'll shock some people in some ways, but also, again, we all have to take into factor the youngness of the entire team, just the inexperience. Yeah. And I see a lot of parallels to the Browns team a year ago. Just weakness on the lines, and again, just inexperience. So I think Shrikar's gotten a little bit more faith than I do. Jack's got a little bit less faith than I do, and that's how our predictions just rolled out.
We're all in the ballpark. I mean, it's not like one of us is saying they're over 10 wins, one of us saying they're under 6. But are there any games on the schedule that stand out to you as maybe some big shockers for their season?
I think I mentioned it earlier, but I think, for example, they upset Buffalo at home. That's one. However, right, I think they also upset Seattle on the road. Those are two potential upsets I see. But they also, again, inexperienced or just being a little bit too, careless with the ball at times with Kyler Murray. I mean, potentially a loss to the Jets, even though they're not a good team. But I think that's another – sorry, Jack. But I think that's a team that I could see them losing to. And even New England, I know how much of the opt-outs they have, but at New England, a more poised, disciplined team, no matter the situation. And again, a tough secondary that DeAndre Hopkins is going up against. So I think New England wins that game. So there are just some games that I see, the Cardinals shock some people, but there are also games where they shock them in the wrong way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have them losing to New England as well because New England feasts on young quarterbacks. They've proven it year in, year out. And I think that, they lose games like that. I think they'll lose to maybe the New York Giants. I think that could be an interesting because, with the team that can run the ball like the New York Giants and the Cardinals lack on the interior D-line, I think that could be a tough game for them. And then I've got them.
Funny, I have that too. I just forgot to mention it. I actually have that too.
I've got them beating the Eagles. I've got them beating the Bills, which is, the Bills are my I'm not going to tell you yet. I won't spoil it, but I've got the Bills doing pretty well. And so I think this Cardinals team has extreme potential, and this is maybe just a tune-up year, kind of get their feet wet year until next year, maybe when they have a
even if they go 8-8, 7-9, 9-7, it's got to be taken as a step forward, and I think it's
most definitely.
It's going to be good for them in the end. I think, as you said, this team has a lot of potential. I can't wait to see what they do in the future.